Let's get started with day one, and we're going to take a look at perhaps the most ubiquitous of CSS3 properties, border radius. And this is the one we all started playing with right when the idea of CSS3 started coming to fruition. So I will open my editor, and this is something you're going to see quite a bit over the course of this course, is we have a basic HTML page, and we're linking to style.css. So, as you would expect, border radius allows us to apply rounded corners to a box. So let's test this out. I'm going to create a div, and we'll give it a class of box. And within it, I will simply write hello world. If we view this in the browser, sure enough, you don't see the box, but you know it's there. So let's next apply a background color and add these rounded corners. Within style.css, I'm going to reference box, and we'll give it a background color of red. And let's also give it a base width and height, just so we know we have a box. So we'll give it a width of 200 pixels as well as a height. Now, there we go, we have our box. So let's make those edges rounded. And we do that with the border radius property. Now, if we apply 10 pixels worth, and I come back and reload the page, you'll see that as easy as that, we've now applied some rounded corners. Isn't that neat? Let's test it some more. And this time I'm going to set a really high value, and we're going to set it to 30 pixels. Now what you can see is the pixel value that we apply sets the roundedness. And if you set it high enough, you can even achieve a circle. So you can use rounded corners on a square to make a circle. It's interesting. Let's make this text look a little bit better first. So why don't we set a line height equal to the height of the box, and that's going to force our line to vertically be centered. And then next I'm going to align the text at the center so we have it horizontally centered. Next, I'm going to return here and set a border radius of 60. This is an arbitrarily high number, but you can see what we're getting here. If we set it up to 100, there we are, and now we have a circle. And once you get to this point, it doesn't matter what you set the value because it sort of maxes out. If I set it to 200, you can see that we get no change because once you're at a circle, you can't make it any more rounded. Now, most of the time, though, you'll want to be a little bit subtle. Unless you desire a circle, you'll find that you'll set a subtle edge, maybe of 4 pixels. Now, with that said, one thing to note is, at least at the time of this recording, the newer versions of Internet Explorer 9 and 10, you have to set a rather high pixel value before you can even begin to see the rounded edges. But hopefully they'll have that fixed before the official release of Internet Explorer 10. Now, border radius is at the point where we can use it as is. However, if you do want to provide support for older browsers that didn't quite support border radius, you can add what we refer to as the prefix versions. Now, prefix will refer to the browser. So in this case, WebKit is behind Chrome and Safari, so we would do WebKit border radius. If we want to take a look at Mozilla's implementation, we can do Mozilla border radius, 4 pixels. But now this is confusing. Why do we have these 3 properties just to make the edges rounded? It's important to realize that before border radius was official, the browser makers wanted to experiment with it. And they could not experiment with it by using the official syntax because then they would sort of be grandfathered in and they wouldn't be able to make changes because people would then be relying on those properties. So what they did is they added a failsafe, essentially, a prefixized version that would allow them to play around with it and make updates before they officially supported the border radius property. Now, border radius has been used quite a bit to the point that, truthfully, you can get rid of these prefixized versions and you'll be fine. But that's not going to be the case for all CSS3 properties. So many people, as a failsafe and to make sure that you reach as many users as possible, will keep those on. And in a future lesson, I'll show you how to generate these prefixized versions dynamically. So that's going to do it today. You've learned your first CSS3 property, border radius.